Good evening, everyone. All is like welcome to Hackodisha, one of the largest hackathon of in India. We have more than 450 applications as of now, and it's the last day to register. So if you have not registered, do register for our hackathon. Talking about today's workshop is one of the most awaited workshop of Hackodisha. It's like learn the basics of GraphQL from Setin. Setin is all the way from Turkey and will give his insights upon GraphQL. He is Postman student leader, a Beta Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador, and IEEE chairman of his university. Setin, if you would like to add something about yourself, feel free to do that.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I hope this session will be useful to everyone. I will talk about. I love communities. I love student communities, and I love contributing to them. So it's an honor to be here.
That's great. Then I guess we can start with the workshop ASAP.
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen. Give me a
Awesome.
second. Give me a second. I need to get up to PowerPoint. Okay.
Awesome.
So, okay, let me just begin. Second. Okay. So, hello everyone. Welcome to my session. Welcome to this session about GraphQL, Introduction to GraphQL. I specifically want to make an GraphQL introduction session because I know it is one of the most important topics right now in backend web development. My main focus in this session is to help you provide with the basic knowledge of what GraphQL is, when to use it, and how to use it. This is, again, pretty important because if you are applying for a position, for example, in the future for a backend engineer, they might ask you, do you know GraphQL? Do you know the differences between the GraphQL and REST API, when to use GraphQL, etc.? So I hope this session will help you in that. So before we begin, let me talk a little bit about myself. My name is Çetin Kaan Taşkıngec. I'm a third year management information systems student from Yaşar University. And I'm also, again, Postman student leader and a Beta Microsoft Learn student ambassador. I'm also the chairman of the IEEE Yaşar University Computer Society and the lead project coordinator there. As you can see, I love communities. I love student communities. I love contributing to the communities and helping other students develop their soft skills and technical skills. From technical point of view, I love web development and open source. Most of my projects are based on web development, web technologies, and all of them are open source. So yeah, let's get into the presentation. Now, what are we going to cover in this session? First of all, I'm going to talk about what is an API and what is a REST API before we get into GraphQL. I especially wanted to start with this because some people might not know what REST API is, and I think it is really important to know what REST API is before you learn GraphQL. You can learn GraphQL without knowing REST, but if you know REST, you will understand what GraphQL brings to the table that REST cannot. After covering REST a little, basically, we are going to go over what GraphQL is. We're going to go over some GraphQL keywords and talk about the benefits of the GraphQL. I'm going to later give you some tools, example of tools you can use on your side projects for GraphQL. And lastly, I have made a pizza restaurant demo with GraphQL application with Express and Node.js. And I'm going to go over the code. I'm going to explain the code, and we're going to test that GraphQL API with Postman. So yeah, before we lose any more time, let's begin. So what is an API? So basically, API is like the middleman of the softwares. I have given a database and an application example in this here. API is the middleman between the application and the database. It fetches data to the application or to the client. In this example, I give a restaurant example. As you can see, the database is the kitchen. Kitchen is where all the ingredients are stored in a restaurant, and database is same for the software. All the tables and data are stored in there. API is the middleman. It brings the data to the application and client in this case. So that's how APIs work. And one of the most common APIs is REST API. So again, well, what is REST API? REST API is one of the, again, as I've said, most common uses of API. RESTful API organizes resources into unique endpoints, and you can go to those endpoints to get data about a resource. You can make a HTTP request to a specific endpoint. For example, if you want to see all the blogs, all the data about blogs in a website, you might make a HTTP GET request to /blogs, /blogs, for example, which is an endpoint. Its main request methods are get, post, patch, and delete, but there are not the only requests. There are many more requests, but these are some of its most common requests. Again, let me show you a pizza REST structure with pizza example. This session is going to involve a lot about pizzas because I know everyone likes pizzas, so you can't go wrong with pizzas. As you can see in this pizza server, in REST structure, if you want to get, for example, tomato from the pizza server, we make a get request to tomato. If you want to get cheese, we make a get request to cheese, and if we want to make get dough, we make a get request to dough. I specifically wanted to add this because GraphQL solves a important thing that REST cannot. As you can see, if we want to, we can't get all of them in this example with one request. We need to make 3 requests, and GraphQL can solve this. Now, this is how REST works. Let me go over what GraphQL is. So, GraphQL is a query language for reading and mutating data in APIs. And GraphQL uses a schema and a type system. We're going to go over those keywords later. GraphQL can only perform post requests. This might confuse you a bit. You might be like, what do you mean GraphQL can only perform post requests? What if I want to update or delete my data? What do I do then? And that's a really good question. And GraphQL has a specific thing for this. It's called mutations. GraphQL updates its data with the usage of mutations. And also, GraphQL has only one endpoint, which is the /GraphQL, while REST API has multiple endpoints, as you can see. REST API can have as much as endpoints you might want. Now, again, with the pizza server, here's the GraphQL structure. You can get all the data you want with just one request from /GraphQL. As you can see, we got cheese, tomato, and dough with just one request. The beauty of GraphQL is that we could have just gotten maybe only what we wanted. For example, we could have just gotten cheese and tomato, not the dough, with just one request, or maybe just get the cheese. And we can specifically imply what we want to get in GraphQL, which solves a lot of problems, a lot of performance problems of applications. Now, let me talk a little about GraphQL keywords. One of the keywords is queries. Queries are one of the main powers of GraphQL. With the usage of queries, we can exactly get the data we want. For example, in this example, you can see we make a query to countries we have a countries query, and we get the names of all the countries in this query. Don't worry if you don't understand. We're going to cover them in the code review. I'm going to explain the best I can in the code review. But just know queries are like mainly for getting data. Mutations are, as I've said, for updating data, mutating data. With the usage of mutations, we can provide arguments and update the data. As you can see, we have a create new country mutation here. We provide it with arguments ID and name, and we can create a new country with this mutation. Now, GraphQL also has a schema, as you might remember, and schema is where all these queries and mutations are located. It's located in the project. It's easy to understand. It's easy to see, and it's a great system. And lastly, GraphQL's types. As you might remember from the beginning, GraphQL uses types, and types are, as its name suggests, declares the types of your variables, like in C, for example, or Java. Examples can be integer, string, list, and etc. Now we have covered some keywords of GraphQL, and let's go over to why we might want to use GraphQL. Like, there is REST. REST is probably easier to learn than GraphQL. Many people agree to that. Many people start with REST compared to GraphQL. Me included, I started with REST too. And many people are really comfortable with using REST. They might ask, why should I use GraphQL when I'm comfortable with using REST? Now, there are some reasons you might want to use GraphQL. The first of all is the schema system. Now, the schema system, as I've said, is a great system. It improves productivity of a development team. With the schema system, both the front-end team and the back-end team can understand how a schema is written, how an API acts, how the back-end works. With this easy-to-read system, front-end team can ask less questions to back-end team, and this can, in future, save a lot of time of development. This is some soft benefit, but here the two are really important technical benefits. The first benefit is GraphQL prevents overfetching. Now, what do I mean by overfetching? Let's go back to our Pizza server. As you can see, we have our Pizza server here, and we make a request to toppings, get request to toppings, and we get all the toppings, as you can see. We get tomato, sausages, shrooms, and peppers. Now, if we wanted to only use shrooms in this example, all the tomato, sausage, and peppers are overfetched data. They are going to be thrown in the rubbish. We didn't need to fetch them, which can lead into performance issues of applications. Now, GraphQL, as I mentioned, solves this problem. If I wanted to get only the shrooms, I can specifically say just get the shrooms in GraphQL, but I can't in REST API, and I can overfetch the data. Another benefit is that it prevents underfetching. Underfetching is the opposite of overfetching, as its name suggests. In this example, we want to build a pizza. We have three endpoints: tomato, cheese, and dough. But to build it, we cannot build it in one request with using REST. We need to make 3 separate requests to build this pizza. But if we were using GraphQL, we could have just said get tomato, get cheese, and get dough with just one request. And this can, as you can see, scale up. We have used 3 sources, but it can scale up to 20, 30, and more. And GraphQL can actually save a lot of performance issues, solve a lot of performance issues in large-scale applications. Now, that's GraphQL. Here are some tools I can recommend you to use with GraphQL. I have used, for example, Apollo is a great tool if you want to use GraphQL with front-end JavaScript front-end frameworks such as React.js. I have used Apollo with React, and it works great. It solves a lot of problems, not problems, but it increases productivity in the front end. Another tool is Express GraphQL. I have used Express GraphQL in the following code review, code example, pizza restaurant example. I specifically included Express GraphQL because Node.js is one of the most popular backend technologies at the moment, and Express is there too. And I specifically wanted to include it. Another great tool is PostGraphQL, and it increases your productivity using GraphQL and PostgreSQL. These are some great cool tools you can use on your side projects. And yeah, now we have covered some basics of the GraphQL. Let's go over the code. Let's go over the code and test the API. Let me just close the presentation and open the code now to explain it to you. I couldn't close the. Okay, I closed the presentation. Awesome. Okay, so we have our demo pizza application here. I don't know if it's visible. I hope it's visible. I can. Okay, now let me go over what we did. First of all, we have our mock data here. This is a JSON file that acts as a database. This is not a database, but it's as an, again, this as its name suggests, it acts as a database. I have seven datas in here, 7 pizzas in here. For example, their ID, in this example, the ID is 1, pizza name is cheese pizza, price is $10, and ingredients is an array which lists ingredients in string data. So before I go in depth about the code, let me show you what tools I used to install it. First of all, I used Node Package Manager, NPM. In this, I used NPM init to initialize the NPM. And after that, I installed 3 modules. The 3 modules are Express, GraphQL, and Express -GraphQL. These are the 3 tools, 3 third-party tools I've used in this project, and I've imported them. Now let's go over the code. First of all, I set up Express here, as you can see, and made app the Express, and made Express listen to the port 3000, so our server can run on port 3000. And after that, I included our mock data, as you can see, our pizzas here, as or fake database here as pizzadb. And then I set up GraphQL here. We are going to go over all of these, why I included these: GraphQL int, GraphQL string, GraphQL list. These are the types, but I'm going to explain them in depth. I specifically imported GraphQL before I imported these types because it gave me an error, so I did it like this, and it solved the error. And lastly, I imported, as you can see, Express GraphQL, which is a library made to run GraphQL with Express.
Hey, like, can you just increase the font size because it's just telling the
Sure.
yeah.
I
Just control and plus works in VS Code. You can try that.
Control plus.
Yep.
Give me a second.
Awesome.
Is it better now?
Awesome. Yep, it is better.
Okay,
Thanks.
awesome. Okay, awesome, nice. Okay, thank you for saying that. Let me continue. Okay, now after we've set up Express, we make our Express use /GraphQL with Express GraphQL. We use /GraphQL because if you remember, if you remember, GraphQL has only one endpoint, which is the /GraphQL. In this app.use GraphQL HTTP, we provide two arguments. One is the schema, and the second one is GraphQL. The GraphQL is a great tool. It's like it lets you test your GraphQL API in browser. I can show that too later, maybe. It's just like Postman, but since I'm more familiar with Postman, I didn't include it. I decided to use Postman here, but you can set it also to true to use it and test it in your browser. Now, let's go. We have, as you can see, we imported our schema here. Let's go over to our schema, and we create our schema with the new GraphQL schema keyword. You can name it whatever you want. I specifically named it schema, but I could since this is a variable, I could name it anything. And this schema has two variables. One is query and one is the mutation. These queries and mutations are here. As you can see, we are going to cover them. Again, its name is query. I decided maybe it's a bad naming choice. I hope it doesn't confuse you, but you can name this whatever you want. Since this is the query, I specifically named them that. So let's go over our query and mutation in the schema before we test and see our application. But before we do that, let's go over our type definition. So as you remember, if you remember, GraphQL uses types, and you need to define the types of your data. To do that, we create a type. I created pizza type, as you can see, with the keyword new GraphQL object type. I named it pizza, and this takes fields as an argument. Now, fields is where all your type definitions are at. Let's go over to our mock data. As you can see, we have ID, which is an integer, pizza name, which is a string, price, which is a string. Don't confuse it with integer, since it's price. It has, as you can see, a $sign, and it's wrapped in string. So it's a string. And we have ingredients, which is an array of strings. So let's type them in here. We type ID, which is a type GraphQL integer. This is just like declaring integers or string in Java. Pizza name is going to be type GraphQL string. Price is going to be type GraphQL string 2. And ingredients is going to be type GraphQL list of strings. So these are why these are imported. And with this, we have successfully defined our first type, which is our pizza type. Now, let's go over to our query. To define a query, it's similar to defining a type. As you can see, we name it, and we define new GraphQL object type, and we give it a name and fields. Now, as you can see, this is a query. We type queries inside. We can have multiple queries. For example, we could have like this. And these three could be different queries, and we can have different queries. These are kind of, you can think them like functions in programming. You can have different ones. But in this example, we only have one query, which is the get all query, just because I didn't want to confuse you too much, since I know GraphQL can be confusing. And we have fields, as you can see. And now we define a query, which is the get all query. I named it get all. You can define it whatever you want. It doesn't need to be get all. And in this example, we define its type. Its type is a new GraphQL list pizza type. Now, you might wonder why it's GraphQL list. It's a GraphQL list because it returns a list as its response. It's not going to return a string. It's going to return a list just like this. Just like the mock data here. And its type is going to be pizza type, so we can access these datas, and that's it. Now our resolve function. Resolve function is kind of like the return function in normal programming. It can have parent and arguments. Queries can have arguments, but I didn't include in this page, again, to not confuse you. And it's going to return our pizza DB. Now, let's test this query. Give me a second. Let's run this server. I need to cd into pizza app. Okay, so as you can see, our server is running at localhost 3000. Now let's open Postman to test our application, test our GraphQL query. Then we are going to test our mutation. Okay, so I already have a post. As you can see, I've made a post request, and I made this request to localhost 3000/GraphQL. This is important. And I go to the body. Oops, I already made them. Let me just delete them so I can make them again. I go to the body and I select GraphQL here. So I can test it. Now, to test your query, you need to type query and semicolons. And this implies that you're going to use a query. Can I zoom in again? This might, I hope you can see it. Give me a second. I hope you can see it though. I don't know. Okay, so we have a query here, and we are going to include our query. What query we are going to include? Let me close the terminal. As you can see, it's get all. We have a get all query here, so we are going to use this query and type it here. Type get all curly bracelets and enter. As you can see, GraphQL uses a lot of curly bracelets, so you might need to get used to that. And after that, we just need to get the data we want. So for example, as you can see, we have pizza type here. Let's check out our pizza type. We have ID, pizza name, price, and ingredients. Now let's get all of them as responses. Let's get pizza ID, pizza name, price, and ingredients. I always type that wrong. Let me just copy it. Okay. Now let's click send. And as you can see, we got all of our data here. We status returned with 2000, which is okay. And we can see all of our data from fake database here, ID, pizza name, price, and etc. Now the beauty of GraphQL is we can actually say whatever we want, whatever we want to get. For example, if I didn't want to get ID and the ingredients, for example, I just wanted to get the pizza name and price, maybe for a menu in the restaurant, I can just say this, like hit this, and I can send it and get it. This is the beauty of GraphQL. You can specifically imply what data you want to fetch from your API compared to REST API. Now, this is how queries work. Now, let's move on to mutations. Let me open mutations too. So mutations are, again, like are written like type definitions and queries. You make a variable and you name it with new GraphQL object type. You give it a name and it has fields again. So in fields, you type your mutations just like you type your queries in the query section. As you can see, we have a mutation called create new pizza because we might need to add new pizza to the menu. We might have a new idea and we might want to add new pizza to the database. So we create a mutation called create new pizza. Now its type is going to be pizza type. Here, as you can see, we are going to access these data, and it's going to take arguments. Now it's going to take arguments because, as you know, we are trying to create new data. We are going to create these new data as arguments in this example. The arguments are going to be the new data. These are going to be, as you can see, pizza name, which is going to be type string, price, which is going to be type string, and ingredients, which is going to be list of strings, the same as here. Now you might wonder, where is ID? We'll get to ID. We just don't care about it at the moment. We can get ID as arguments too, but I made a different solution with ID. And these are the arguments. Now the resolve function, as you know, resolve function is kind of like a return function. At this resolve function, we make a push to our pizza DB. Since our pizza DB is an array of objects, we push it. Our ID is going to be the length of pizza DB plus 1. Since again it's an array of objects, we are going to get its length and add 1 at plus 1. So we can automatically assign the ID. This will eliminate the human error function. Some people might enter the same IDs, and it can cause problems. We're going to make the pizza name args.pizza name. We're going to name the price args.price, and ingredients is going to be args.ingredients. And lastly, we're going to return args. Now, let's test our mutation. Let's go back to Postman. And just like writing a query, we're going to write mutation and open a curly bracelets. And just like query, we're going to say our mutation. What's our mutation's name? Its name is create new pizza. We're going to take that. We're going to copy that. Now, if you remember, we make queries like this and open another curly braces. But since this mutation gets arguments, we need to open parentheses here, as you can see. So the arguments are going to go there. Now, what arguments is it going to take? Let's go back. As you can see, args are here. It's going to take pizza name as a string, price as a string, and ingredients as a list of strings. Now, let's write it. Our pizza name is going to be, let's make a special pizza. Let's make a free pizza. This is going to be like a price in the restaurant. Our price is going to be, since it's a free pizza, it's going to be $0. And our ingredients, I don't want to type it wrong again. I just need to copy it. Oh, I don't know what I have with ingredients, but I always type it wrong. We are going to have ingredients as an array of strings. Now, what ingredients does it going to have? It's going, let's make it have tomato. Let's make it have pepper. Let's make it, and lastly make it have shrooms. This is a weird pizza, but okay. So, and here we're going to log our data. We're going to firstly log our pizza name, price, and ingredients. So we can see if we mutated it correctly. Let's send the data, and as you can see, status is 200. It's okay, and we can see our mutated data here. We create new pizza with pizza name free pizza. Price is $0, and ingredients are tomato, pepper, and shrooms. To see this new pizza, we need to make a query request again. Make a get all request, and let's get all the IDs and pizza names so we can see if ID work too. And let's go back down the bottom, and as you can see, we have added free pizza here. We can also get other data too, price and ingredients. I got it copied this time. And as you can see, all of this new data is now mutated into this mock database, fake database, pizza database. So this is how mutations, GraphQL, and APIs work in general. So yeah, this is what I wanted to show you in this session. Thank you for listening me. Let me open the thank you for listening me page. Okay. And okay, so I hope this session was useful to you. I tried to teach you the fundamentals of GraphQL the easiest I can. I hope you learned something new. I hope I didn't make you too hungry with all the pizza assumptions. And I hope, most importantly, you enjoyed the session. And thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot, Sachin. It was really, really nice having you over here with us. So, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I will be asking it on your behalf. And yeah, set in line. And I would like to add something like, like I would like to add how GraphQL started. And it was like when the industry was shifting towards mobile first approach, like the design was also enhancing, the culture was enhancing, the network usage was enhancing. So it was Facebook who built GraphQL when they were rebuilding the iOS application from scratch. And like I really love the session, Chetan. I like the analogy of the pizza thing, and I really like that you gave veg pizza. Although I guess you like chicken more, but it's thanks for including everyone over here. Yeah, and thanks a lot, guys, for staying with us. It was really nice to have you all. So, in case you have any questions, you can throw it to us, or we can end it now. I guess we don't have any questions as such. So, Sirin, I would like to ask one question from my side. Like, you like inculcate JavaScript and they showed the analogy with JavaScript. Just can you give insights about how can we do it with Python? Like, is there any possibility we can do GraphQL with Django or Flask?
Um, I I haven't actually tested in GraphQL with
Okay,
Django, but I think it should work with no problems because since
okay,
GraphQL is a big thing, is currently a pretty big thing, and the Django
yeah,
is one of the leading backend technologies like Node.js. I don't see any problems uh, working with GraphQL. I think it might have a third party library, just like how Express has for the Django, but I
okay,
haven't actually
and yeah.
tested it.
Awesome. And like I would also like to ask, like, can you just explain the role of Apollo a bit more? Like, why are we using Apollo as a middleware?
Um, the firstly, I used Apollo. I was really keen on REST. I not REST, sorry, GraphQL. I didn't know GraphQL. I was working on a project and they used GraphQL. I needed to learn it, and they were using React and Apollo. And I noticed Apollo made writing queries in the front end and the React front end much easier. I could have written them without Apollo, but it would be it wouldn't be nicer. With Apollo, it's much easier to read, and it is much easier to write queries. So everyone can understand what this query is for, what this mutation is for, etc. In the front end.
Okay. Claire is asking, like, do you have your pizza server code available publicly?
Um, I don't, but I can include it in a second if you guys want.
Yeah, like you can do that, and like we can add the GitHub link or just link on our description. That works. If that's okay, Claire, like let us know, okay, or something like that. That works. And yeah,
Yeah,
I
sure.
guess
I'm
that's
going to upload it as soon as possible. So sorry for breaking you up, cutting you off.
yeah,
Sorry.
it's cool. It's cool. Yeah. Uh, So, like, don't you think like we are like mostly the reason we are using GraphQL is to optimize the network usage, right? So, if you're building a small application in which we don't have, we don't need a lot. Like, suppose what I feel personally is, suppose GraphQL useful if we are doing more than 20 REST API calls. So, if you are building a small application, don't you feel like using GraphQL is disadvantageous?
Using a GraphQL in small application is actually not disadvantageous, but it might be disadvantageous for you, for another person, for example. For me, maybe because most of the people are used to develop APIs in REST, and many of them are not keen on or comfortable writing GraphQL because GraphQL has very different syntax compared to REST APIs, and the difference can be minor to notice if you're using a small or even a middle scaled application. The difference between the GraphQL and REST API can be minor, but it's major in, as you said, larger applications. Larger applications benefit the most from GraphQL, but if you're using a small application, maybe you're developing a personal project, a personal API, it's best to use whatever you are comfortable with because it's going to make you more productive. And
Okay.
the difference is going to be minor in, as I've said, smaller projects.
Yeah, in terms of, I guess, smaller budget, we won't be able to, differentiate and on the basis of network usage we are doing on particular that. And apart from this, like, do you feel there is any disadvantage to GraphQL? Apart from the learning curve, and it's like not very same to Java, similar to JavaScript, but it also uses, Apollo to refactor that to bring it to, like, apart from that, do you have any disadvantage of GraphQL?
Um, I don't think GraphQL doesn't really have any more disadvantages, but its main disadvantages is the learning curve, in my opinion. Like the learning curve is so steep. When I was first learning GraphQL, I wasn't getting it at all.
Yeah.
Because it was really confusing to me since I was used to REST structure or while developing, and it took a long time to click. I watched a lot of free online videos from YouTube and Udemy and etc. to understand GraphQL. I think the main disadvantage is the learning curve, and if you're using GraphQL in a team environment, this disadvantage is going to be much more major because there are going to be multiple people working on the project, and multiple people means multiple people might not be comfortable with GraphQL, and they might
Yeah.
be not as productive as if they were using a REST API.
Yeah, that's true. And can you also give insights upon, suppose when we are building a monolithic application, when we are building microservices, so do you feel like if you are using GraphQL, the transformation is easier to do?
I haven't actually had an experience building a
Okay.
microservice, but I don't want to really say anything anything false with GraphQL. I just build some normal. It was not. I haven't had a chance to build a GraphQL microservice.
Okay. 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 Guys, like, and GraphQL is open source, you can contribute there.
Mhm.
And yeah, thanks a lot, Setin, for this awesome session. We really loved it. So if we don't have any questions, we can close it as of now. And thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you for having me again. It was really
It,
enjoyable.
yeah, it was our
I,
pleasure as well. And by the way, like, guys, like, we are closing the registration soon, and we have crossed 1,500 applications. So do register fast, and let's meet you all tomorrow, and let's build the next big thing together. Thank you, guys.
Thanks all.
Yeah, I ended the broadcast.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Setin. It was really nice.
Is it
I hope the
finished?
questions. Yeah,